Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Walking 90. It is your beautiful host again, Yogi Bar, and is joining me is the guy to my left or right, wherever you're looking at it, that stole the former player of the year from Richard Kickers from me. It's Chip. How are you doing, Chip?
I would just like to say for the record, I personally did not steal him from you. That was Mr. Peter Marlette. But
Doesn't
glad
matter.
to have him. We'll take care of him.
Does not matter. The League One is full of cheaters, and we all steal everyone else's.
Okay, EVD.
You know, hey. Well, technically, I didn't steal it from you. I took it from Noco.
I need to find my EVD for MVP shirt from the first year still and wear it on one of the podcasts.
He came from Noco. Also joining us on the show is my main man, Kyle. This guy, you guys, just dropped the new Black History Month t-shirt. I'm pretty sure you guys will have some fried chicken and watermelon going to sell soon in the pub down there. How are things going on in the land of Mingos?
Things have been going good. Yeah, Featherstone put out a new hat for Black History Month. So 100% of the proceeds goes to the YWCA Madison, which is helping with racial disparity and racial equity education in the Madison area. And then there is going to be an event. So for those that are in the Madison area, swing by the Forward Club. We have raffle prizes, including official MLS soccer balls and cleats and literature, food, gift cards, and cases of beer. So swing on over Saturday.
How much are y'all charging from the MLS soccer ball? Y'all charging a mortgage?
Oh, it's part of the. I think that one's going to be a silent auction / wrap. Like that one's going to raise the most money.
So pretty much to get in the silent auction, I have to give it with my kids' tuition. Gotcha.
Maybe.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Also,
like a nice community college tuition, not like Yale.
We talk about MLS, sir. You know it ain't gonna happen. Also joining us on the show is today's special guest. It is the guy who just got promoted to a fantastic new job. Is Mr. Lee Oneill. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Yogi, Chip, Kyle. Nice to see you guys. Look, I really appreciate you spending the time as well with me, learning a lot about the ecosystem in the USL. And look, pleased to be here and learning a lot about my job and what's in front of me. And really excited to be here.
So let me ask this, because we all go through it, when we get on a new job and everything like that. What was that moment? Have you had that moment yet where you're at your job and you're kind of just like, oh, snap, this wasn't in the job description? Have you had that moment yet?
I think I've had just about that moment every day since I've been here. It's a fascinating place to be. It really is. I think it's a real change for me personally, culturally wise, coming from where I've been most of my life in another country and then coming to the US. There's that aspect to it. And then there's the office environment from a league perspective and not a daily club perspective. So it's very different. There's similarities within that, but it is very different at the same time. So it's taken a bit of adjustment and things that I'm working through on a daily basis. But I constantly get my job description out and have a look at it and see what is reality and what is the norm.
What's the weirdest thing that the last guy left in your desk?
The last guy has left some memorabilia up in my office of some League One clubs. So I have an office here now of some, and I think it's a map of the US. So they, geography wise, they get me to understand exactly where certain places are because my geography is not the best, and I'm learning on that process as well.
What I'm hearing is
people trying to find out where Windsor, Colorado is. That's probably going to be a lot harder. It's like, okay, Colorado. No,
that's near Boulder, right?
Yeah, it's like when you say Ipswich. It's like, where's it? What is an Ipswich? Is that like I don't know what that is. But what I'm hearing is we need to speculate wildly about why some states are blue on the map and others are not.
I was wondering
some states are blue and map. Again, previous person might be able to answer that because it's been left on my wall. So I've got no idea. Again, maybe I need to dig into a little bit around that. But if you look at the size of the country and the country that I'm from, there's a big difference.
Oh yeah, there's a big difference there.
We can actually jump right into that. Previously, before you came over here to USL, you were the general manager and the academy director over at Ipswich Town. So, if for those that don't know, just kind of talk about your role and kind of how you got involved with Ipswich Town throughout I think you were there since 2009, I believe.
Yeah, I've been there a long time, and actually the reason why I guess I grew up in Ipswich was to do with my parents. Like everyone, they pick a destination. My dad's from Scotland, just outside Glasgow, and my mum's from Ipswich. My dad actually moved down to Ipswich and was recruited to play for their team. So it started with my dad. He played in the system there at the football club. It was a generation above me. It's kind of been brought down, and I was fortunate enough to sign for the club as a player when I was 14, and went through the youth system there. And very much enjoyed my time there as a young scholarship / young professional, if you want, in that process. And then one of the many statistics that receive an injury and can't, go to the next level and consistently have a professional career. So my career took a turn, very different. I went to university, went to Loughborough in England, and studied sports science and business management, and then really was coaching. I went into the coaching area quite early in the sports science field and started looking at how you can make differences in the sports science and medicine side of things of football or soccer. You can stop me every time I say the word football and re-correct me in the soccer terms.
You're good.
So basically, in the soccer world, and then kind of went back into the academy system, really started to work with the younger players. We started having them in at 8 and 9 in the club, and then work all the way through to under 23. So that was where I spent a large percentage of my career. And then you're one of those people that was very lucky enough to support the club, play for the club, and then go through several senior management positions at the club. Academy director, and then worked with the first team towards the end of my career there as general manager. And that role really looked at all aspects of the football club, along with some other senior people, really running the day-to-day aspects of the first team, the academy, the community, and the women's program. Ipswich in England is a big area in relation to the club. We're a big club. The stadium holds about 30,000 people. And just recently, the guys are doing a fantastic job. There's lots of support, and they're getting sellout crowds in League One. So, great club, great memories. Learned a lot personally as a development going through it. And like I said, it was a real dream and honor for me to be going through that pathway as a player, and do everything from being the boot boy to cleaning the rooms to managing the boardroom. So great times.
So how does that recruitment process work, where you go from your boyhood club, the club of your dreams, to being the senior VP of the 3rd Division US Soccer League? How did they find your name, I guess, or how did you find their name?
So I've always kept an eye on it. Okay, I'll probably step back a little bit longer than that, actually. My affiliation, I think, with the country, my dad played in Kansas for the major indoor league when it started in the late 70s, early 80s. So I actually lived out here for about four odd years. My dad played for Wichita Wings. So I had an affiliation, really enjoying as a young kid what I can remember of that experience. And my wife has actually got family out here, and we come out to America quite a lot. And that's been the case for the last 10, 15 years. Anytime I got time off in England, I would come to America, and I was really intrigued with the sports world. I just love sport, full stop, in all different areas. And I kept an eye really on what was going on in the soccer world. And obviously the MLS had grown over a number of years, and the USL was looking to do the same. There was different pathways and different things happening. Mark Cartwright, who you may or may not know, Mark and I got introduced, really, we crossed paths in our own world back in England, because he was the sporting director at Stoke. And when I was working at Ipswich, we had the same managers in Paul Lambert. So we'd spoken quite a few times, and we're actually on an FA course in England as the FA technical directors, where he's an instructor. And so, I did have several conversations with him, and he invited me out to have a look at the USL and the head offices in particular. I met with the guys last summer, came down to Tampa and enjoyed the sights of Tampa. And I was kind of blown away, really. I thought there was some really, really good people in the office, had really good ideas, and I could see the landscape that they were trying to navigate and build. And I thought for me it was a good opportunity and a good time for me in my career to look at something different. And here I am in the role in Tampa.
I want to ask you this question, man. Like, when it comes to being a vice president now, like you just got into the role, your first 90 days, do you kind of have like a plan on what you want to do? Like every 10 or so, 15 days, like what are the kind of the major things you're looking to do within your first 90 days as VP?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Yes, it's 100 days if you want of your first role in that. You have 100 days to kind of make some impacts and challenges that you might face and how you're going to go on it. I think for me, the most important thing throughout that whole first 90 to 100 days is building relationships and learning the environment and the ecosystem here at the head office, and obviously each of the clubs I've got relationships with and I've got to work with. I think they're all different. You know, we've got 12 teams in League One that are spread out across the US, and each of those clubs have their own different identity and different communities. So trying to adapt and understand them. So I've spent time really trying to get to know people and know how they work. And I think as a team, that's really important here at the office. There's some great people that think the same mindset, if you want, and that have a growth mindset, want to learn things. And I think I draw on some of my experiences from a negative side of things, some things that didn't go well for me, and learn from that really quickly and make sure I can make change in the way I try and do things and the way that I learn from other people. So it's been really good. You know, an office environment, again, pretty new to me, because within a footballing world, you're very rarely in your office. You're out and about doing quite a few things. Obviously, I'm based in an office here, and there's 80 plus people, and they're all different as well. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm split it up. And my main part of that period of time is to build relationships and, you know, understand certain things and see where I can, you know, make quick wins, if you want, and trying to help people. And obviously strategically start looking a little bit more past the first 6 months, past the next year. What does that look like for League One, and where are we trying to go? And, you know, working with the senior exec team here to try and pull those ideas together and put them into reality.
What are some of the strategic areas of importance that League One is trying to focus on right now?
I think maintaining, you know, I think making sure that we can have a number of franchises that keep operating year by year. It's like any new startup, really. You know, they have a period of time where making sure they can maintain their business models is really important, so that they can continue to operate. And as well as that, look at the growth strategy, and that's club by club, and that's market by market, and the league itself. So all of those strategically is where we're at. It's geography, looking at the map and seeing where we think certain markets might be that might be interested in this type of area, and vice versa, the markets coming to us, and, you know, identifying that they're hearing lots of positive things about USL, whether that be the championship, you know, the Super League, the women's project, the youth projects. You know, it's gradually getting that momentum, and lots of people are talking about it. So there's a lot of work still to do in that area, I think, and putting it all down and making sure we can map out and navigate those challenges that are going to come. Normally for me, my first 100 days are around things like facilities and making sure teams are ready to go and deliver a good quality product on the pitch and off the pitch.
Yeah. What would you say has been either the biggest transition that you're ready to take on, or has been the biggest transition going from on the club side, which is it's very much very specific, very one particular thing, to a whole league, where, as you mentioned, it's spread out throughout the country?
Yeah, I think it's how I would look at it in my previous role was through one lens. I was looking for the best interest from the football club that I was working for, and the staff that were in there, and the players that were involved in that. Having come to the league side, it's like you step the other side of the fence, and you're now having to broaden your lens as to what's best for those 12 clubs currently involved, what's best for the league, and what's best for the potential markets that are out there, you know, across the whole ecosystem. So there's a saying, being in it and on it. I think sometimes within this role now, it's being on top and overseeing and looking ahead, rather than necessarily being in the trenches, if you want, what's going on in a daily battle with the clubs on trying to deliver those aspects. So it's a very different role to my previous one, but there are similarities as well within that.
In USL League One, obviously, you know, it's a 12-team league now. I think 2 more teams coming in, so it'll be a 14-team league in 2024. But it's so different and unique than League One over in England, where clubs have been around for 90, 100 years, and they kind of already have their identity. For you being a VP, are you helping out in developing that identity for some clubs, or trying to help them, like, understand, like, hey, this is the market, this is how you can build your identity around it? Are you kind of helping them plan those things?
Yeah, listen, really good question. Probably 2 parts to it. First part is there is a lot of history there within the game over in Europe, and I won't just say England in general. There's a lot of history in Europe for some of those teams that have been built over a number of years, and that stem back right to various different things. But when you strip that history back, it's normally building on a good community club. That's where it all normally tends to start from. And so there is similarities a lot with the journeys that some of these clubs are going on, and some that are starting this year in their first year in the league, and only 2 or 3 years of age, if you want, in growth. So I think it is learning from. What I will say is that even within those European teams that have been operating for a long period of time, there are things that haven't worked so well and haven't gone the way that people plan to. So I think I mentioned it early on about learning from some of those experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly, and drawing on them to help clubs. But it's not like you just pick a textbook and say, look, okay, because that worked in that country, that's going to work over here, and put it in that environment, and that'll be successful. It doesn't work like that, because each of those clubs have different goals and objectives, different mission, vision, values, and different cultures. And I think they're all really important things that give them their own identity. And that's the kind of thing that I want to draw on. I want, clubs want to be individualized, but yes, we are under one umbrella, but they have their own badge. They have their own, what it means to their own supporters, and how they engage in that. So I'd like to think over a period of time, we are developing good principles and practices from other clubs, and I can share that with them. But I'm also learning from them. I think some of the practices that are going on in some of the current League One clubs is brilliant. I speak to these guys more or less on a daily basis, and they're doing some great work. They really are, with sometimes limited resources, and they are managing to think outside the box, and developing a fan base, and developing stadiums and infrastructure. So I think all of the above. Yes, I've got some experience, and there is experiences out there, and I'd like to think, going back the other way, there'll be people looking abroad to the US and thinking, how do they do that? How do they do that so well? And my experience as a sport over here, it has been wow. I go there and I'm entertained on so many different levels, not just the game of what's going on the pitch.
If you want to hear more of a conversation about that, you should check out our last episode with Marty Cordero of Union Omaha, available on YouTube and all major podcasting platforms. But yeah, we talked with got that plug in. But yeah, we talked with Marty, who's the president over at Union Omaha, a lot about that. And so Marty comes from a baseball background, and when they came in, to paraphrase him a bit, he's like, we were kind of told, soccer fans, they don't want the baseball gimmicks and all that stuff. But he's like, we learned, yeah, they want the baseball gimmicks and stuff, and just going off it purely of, it's purely this, how you'd run a League One club in England, where that's the product. Here, you have more families, you have more casual fans and everything else. So you kind of have to find new and novel ways to get them in to try out the product. And then they fall in love for the product of itself, not just everything around the product. So that was a really interesting conversation we had with him about something that's definitely different. And you wonder, especially with a lot of that cross-pond pollination, how soon you'll see some of that stuff start to crop up in lower leagues or non-league football in countries like England and Germany.
Yeah, and I speak to Marty regularly. He's one of a number of people that within there. I think it's great, and I think there's a lot to learn from cross-pollination in sport in this country. I've been to events here, and I see people getting up and walking around, and then going to concessions and coming back, and buying merchandise a lot more differently than necessarily we would do it abroad. It's just different. When the game goes on in the UK, for example, a lot of people are focused and don't tend to move and sit in one place, and they're really focused in on what's going on the pitch. Now that's a little bit less here, but there's other things going on that keep them entertained. So there's a real correlation between what people drive as entertainment on and off the pitch. And I think there is work to do with raising standards on the pitch and making the level higher and higher. That comes with more development, more coaching, more players, and that'll come over a period of time. But I went to an ice hockey game the other day, and it was like going to a rock concert at the same time as a great product that was going on the ice, with loads of different things and lots happening. And I was like, my God, I don't know which way to look here. It was brilliant. So it's trying to get that kind of atmosphere like you would get at a major World Cup, Champions League game or something like that. If you watch them, there's lots going on, and to develop that. League One does that with the baseball model really well. So there'll be elements that we can take from that can help develop and drive the soccer program. But like you said, for me, communities, families, and making sure that they can go out and have an enjoyable experience. Doesn't matter, the age, the gender, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter on those things. They're all going away from the game with a real positive experience.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you talked about raising the standards of the quality on the pitch, and I know you're kind of pursuing your UEFA A license, I believe. So is that going to be one of those, like, trying to talk to these clubs and talk to the coaching staff and trying to encourage them to continue getting those badges, whether it's through the United States or Mexico or whatever country that they originate in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good qualified coaches already in the league. I think they already have their A licenses and stuff like that. I mean, something I went through, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now, and I learned a lot doing the coaching, because you see it through a different lens and how you would make decisions in the game. And I think that's important when you're explaining to people around the stadium, and particularly stakeholders in the boardroom, about what's going on in the game. When they ask tactically, why is the coach changing this, this, and this? You've got a genuine understanding of why, and if you've played the game, you know that as well. One thing I think is important within raising the standards is, that development process, the pathway from the youth to pro, and the ability for a player to go through and learn those things with good quality coaching, good facilities, and then the end product being playing in an arena that matters, in a league with people watching them. I think that is the thing that will help raise standards as the time goes on. You're already getting a lot of people from different parts of the world start to look at the US as a market that they actually want to come and play. And I think that will help drive standards up as well. So there's probably a like cyclone of things that are going to happen, or have happened, and going to continue to happen over the next few years, that I would like to believe and think that the standards within the game will go from here and continue to raise year by year. And we have to look at it from a league perspective. That's why it's important when new teams come in that, facilities and quality of staff and quality of coaching is of a high standard, because every time we want to raise that bar, we want to get better. We don't want to go backwards. We don't want to go back to where it was maybe 5-10 years ago, because we're actually trying to make steps forward, not backwards.
Well, right.
Oh, sure. You got it.
I was going to say, I think that's part of the reason why people kind of look at the franchise fee as some sort of robbery thing, but it's kind of like, we need to make sure that you are committed to this and building this. And if you're $5 million in the hole before you even start, we know that you're going to be pot committed to building a quality team, a quality environment, and everything else to really get your money's worth out of it. Because we've seen that a little bit in NISA, where they have teams come and go like halfway through the season because the barrier to entry is so low, which is good for a couple of reasons. But the staying power in League One's been pretty good. I think since its founding, we've only had 2 teams fold that weren't related to MLS. One, which was Lansing United, and 2, which was Tucson, which kind of had some extenuating circumstances going on with ownership and things like that. And
facilities and having the facility. Yeah.
So we'll call it 1.5 teams have folded in the history of the league. So I think that says a lot about the strategy League One's had on finding good ownership groups who are committed to soccer at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, again, really important point to raise. These things, aren't cheap to run. They are expensive, and that there is a continual amount of, not only just when you purchase the franchise and the team to operate, it's that ongoing costs for teams. They are cost. Everyone's costs across the country are going up. So it's making sure that money is invested and is spent wisely, and is continually making sure that they are offering something better year by year. And that's a challenge for both the clubs and the league, but one that we embrace, and one that we are working very hard to continue that pathway. And as I said, to go back to the strategic journey, as the league grows, you will feel and hear that standard grow better and better. Not dissimilar really to where the championship was. If you look back a few years ago, probably see some real similarities to where League One is now, and where obviously they've gone to in an accelerated journey. That's where League One is at the moment.
So I have a question for you, Lee. When it comes in terms, it just got announced today that USL has extended their deal with ESPN for, I believe, 1 year. When you guys are looking for a media partner, and we know that, talking to various owners in the league, they keep talking about, well, we want to capture 2026 and, that big soccer boom that's about to happen then. When you guys are looking for a media deal, or, just in terms of the people that are showing y'all games, what are some of the key things that y'all are looking for in terms of building that media arm for USL League One. I mean USL.
I think where we're different probably to other sports and markets is the amount of games that we have going across the week. If you look across the breadth of teams, Championship, League, League One, all the other games that go on, there's a lot of them. So in working with a broadcaster that can basically deliver on those things, the amount of games, and then keeping the standards that have been set previously on game delivery and those types of things, I think they're a couple of things that we would look at. And in general, I think also making sure that there is an appetite to watch and go to games. There's two elements to that. One, the fan base that are live at the games in the stadium to create an atmosphere, and then the ability to be able to see those games from a platform regularly that, like I said, hit high standards. So I think the pathway, we know that statistically the games are improving. There are attendances going up, the viewership ratings are going up. Everything is going in the right direction. And I think, the build up to 2026, which is an exciting chapter in the US soccer world, we're part of that story along with another league and other leagues, but we are part of that story. And I think as that grows, the appetite to find out what is going on in the US with soccer will hopefully drive more people to watch the games online or go to games live at the weekends or during the week.
Okay, all right. And the other question I have for you was, so when the league first started around, me and Kyle are old. We've been around here for 5 years now. There was a lot of I wouldn't say media writers, but there were media writers, things like that. Over the course of years, of course, we know there's COVID. We've seen the league kind of dwindle down on that. Do you see the league kind of getting back to that point of having media writers involved and talking about the league and, of course, spreading the goodwill of some of the works that USL League One are doing?
Yeah, look, we discussed it a lot here, and it was actually only this week that I think we have to revisit and again, take a breath, learn what has been good and what we can do to make improvements. And I think the storytelling, and you'll all know Greg Lalas, who's with us and has been with us for about a year. In the conversations that I've had with him and Jeremy, the new senior vice president of the championship, that storytelling we have here as the USL is really important. So on two elements, one, it's the national game, telling everyone around the world what's going on here with the USL and how exciting it is. And then the second part to that is working with the clubs that, particularly maybe at League One, don't have a mass amount of staff to be able to work on the media or social media or production line to tell stories. It's a big focus for us because I was lucky enough to know a little bit more than most because I'd been and visited certain things. But for people who don't know about it, that storytelling becomes really important. And you'll only see certain clubs that are, I'm not going to name them because I don't want them to get any more publicity, but there are certain clubs in the UK that are, owned by American people that are doing very well at the moment in the market because they're telling the story of the people within the club and the area. And I think that is such a powerful thing to narrate, if you want, from a league perspective. So I would expect that to improve and get better over a period of time. There's a lot of great people in the office here that are, new to the environment and the ecosystem as with myself. So I would definitely like to think and hope that is definitely something that's going to improve over the next 2 or 3 years.
Could hear Kyle's soul just groan at the mention of WFC over there. There's been a lot of fun online discourse about that, but I think it is, a really interesting subject though about what is the best way to promote the league and get the stories out and everything else. And I think that's definitely something that makes soccer, where soccer's kind of fell behind a lot of the other sports in the country, is you can turn on ESPN all day long and hear about NBA players getting into Twitter fights online. When was the last time you saw a general interest soccer story? And so it really falls to the league to be the ones that tell that story, which I think they've done a pretty good job of if you're really plugged in, but getting to a larger audience, I think it's going to be really important for the growth.
Well, and is that kind of where that YouTube aspect of the USL moving to YouTube and kind of putting more content, is that kind of where that storytelling can also begin? It's like going through the YouTube channels that recently got announced a week or two ago.
Yeah, I think that's streamlining it all together so it's an easier access platform for people to get more information. And just on that, Chip, what I would say is I think the supporters, people who are really passionate about your team, and you've all identified teams that you're passionate about, that go to games regularly, you have a platform to be able to promote your organization, on a positive way by going and saying you really enjoyed the experience of game day. You really enjoyed seeing that player come through the youth system and play in the first team. You really enjoyed the recruiting of that player and he's doing well. The team's winning. Whatever the story is, there are between 1 and maybe 3,000, 4,000 people every week going to games, sometimes more. That's 3,000 or 4,000 stories that could be told, and they just multiply. You guys know the social media platform better than I do, but how powerful it can be in storytelling is from the supporters side of things and selling, their idea. Why are they so invested in that team? Is it just because they want to go out for a night out with their family? Fine, fantastic. But is it deeper than that? Is there a reason why that, people become, I've seen this a lot, tribal about their team and their patch. And you create that rivalry within the teams where, you're not going to win on Friday night in my patch, and vice versa, you're not going to come and win on my patch, and we all have it, and it's great. I think that's what drives sport. So I would urge really supporters within that, and they're all their own identities, but keep, if you see something and you enjoy something, it is tell other people, because that's how you're going to get other people come to their franchises, to come to their games, or even watch it at home.
I want to ask you this question, man. Like, for you, are you planning to go to any games? Like, are you, you're the VP now. Are you planning to go to any games during the year? You got to get out there.
I am. Listen, my schedule at the moment is looking like I've got, 12 teams to visit very quickly. I'd love to be in 2 places at once. When the home openers come out and there's obviously all kicking off at the same time, it's difficult to be in everyone's stadium for that experience. But yes, 100%. I've already made it clear to the owners and the presidents that I need to go and see, because I can't help them until I know and understand what, their stadium experience looks like, or what the game looks like. You can only sell so much sometimes online when you're watching games or on a TV. You need to be there and meet people and talk to them and get their side of the story. So I'm itching to get out. I love football. I can, soccer, sorry. I can take it in all the time. I don't have access to it in the office, so we watch it on TV, but I don't get to go and see it out live training or anything like that. So I'll get out to as many games as I possibly can, as long as my wife lets me.
Oh, that's for all of us. We understand that. We understand that, fully.
Omaha and Madison have a lot of midweek games. That's an easy business trip.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
I was going to say, fly out on Tuesday, see the match on Thursday, fly back by Saturday.
I'm getting too acclimatized to the Florida weather down here. It needs to be a little bit warmer for me, I think.
Oh, it's plenty hot in the Midwest in the summer.
I was going to say, July, you're good. July
10 degrees in Omaha, beating sun. It's
I just want you to know that is absolutely hilarious. He's even in the middle of the summer, he was like, "Oh no, it's too cold. I can't do that." No, absolutely.
One question I had is, so let's say a year from now, you've been in this role. What is going to be the biggest thing for you to determine so far that the job that you're doing is considered a success?
Yeah, good question. I ask myself that every day, actually. I think, like I said, go back to make sure I've helped maintain those organizations that we currently have at the moment, because, I know I can see the lot of time, money investing that's going on in those 12 teams that we currently have. So for me, that's a win. We've minimally maintained what we've got and making sure that they are operating a bit better than what they currently are from a P&L point of view. And then we're able to add some more teams in a year's time, so we're looking at possibly 2, 3, whatever the number is, come of teams into that league for next year to make it more competitive. I think building trust with the presidents and the ownership groups of those teams, that's a big win for me, and understanding that, we are working together and we are a team of people. And, I have a lens on it that I'm trying to make sure that their voice is, being heard here in the head office. And, I'm delivering, if you want, standards from the head office and not accepting certain things. And, there'll be times when in the short term, we have to make exceptions for certain things. And it might be, a short-term game on a facility to a long-game game for a new stadium to be built. But as long as we are sticking to those plans and people are bought into them, and, I think that'll be success for me, building relationships and trust. And fundamentally coming down to it, these clubs are operating better with higher numbers. More people are going to watch the game live. More people are viewing in online. More people are buying merchandise. All of those things are wins for me, because it just shows that we are all making progress. And look, the previous people that are involved in the League One operation, they've done a fantastic job to get it to where it is now. I'd like to think we can continue that journey year by year and month by month.
Speaking of expansion, so I know that there is an expansion plan. There's probably lots of people that you're talking to, maybe even one or two markets that are about to announce getting a team. From a USL office standpoint, what are kind of some things that you would check off of a list of what your dream potential franchise would look like, besides like having a billionaire primary owner and a stadium ready to go?
I think I'll just take
those are the
two
big ones.
You've answered my question. That's it.
Those are the hardest ones. Okay, anyway,
yeah, they're two. I think listen, this is really exciting. You look at the landscape, and again, I've got the map behind me, and I look at where we've currently got franchises and organisation operationally. So Championship, League One, and League Two. There's areas where we don't have, and some of these states are bigger than the country that I've come from. So there's massive amounts of opportunity in those areas to look at the building of soccer in that area. And some of the things we look at really are just simple things, the population of people, the current soccer provision, if you want, that's available in that area, from a youth perspective, from a male and female perspective, and stadium infrastructure that may already exist or potentially could come into that fold. And that's either, like you said, from an ownership perspective, it might be from government perspective locally, and that they want to look at certain things. So there's lots of different things, and we have a number of people here in the head offices that obviously look at that expansion model and work very hard to look at new markets, look at new areas, and also work with new onboarding teams, teams that have identified, that some of them that you pointed out that have shown an interest, that have signed franchise agreements, and that are looking to build that team and ecosystem over the next, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 years, so they're ready to launch their team. So there's so many things that go on in that expansion process that there's a lot of people involved, and that's right up at the senior level.
And it's been exciting. I know last year, One Knoxville really enjoyed trolling our podcast about when they were going to announce League One, because it was like the worst kept secret in the world that they were going up. And so anytime the league would like sneeze, we'd be like, that's One Knoxville. That's One Knoxville. And they even have like the balls and like, oh, look at this.
One time they had like the sunset color be exactly like Knoxville's colors. We're like, it's got to be.
And then it was Santa Barbara, and it's like, oh, which is also really cool. But it was like, you got us. But it is really cool seeing that growth at League Two, because you have Wichita, Ballard, Lionsbridge, all these League Two clubs that are outdrawing League One clubs a lot of the time. And it's kind of really cool to see that growth and everything coming in. I guess with expansion too, would the league ever look at cutting back on the territory rights? So I know the big one would be like Chattanooga, or like I don't know if Lincoln's in Omaha's little bubble, but like if Omaha would have to do something to get a team in Lincoln, Nebraska, or anything like that, where they'd look on not having a strict territory rights?
First of all, I think there's a good point you raised there about League Two, and I just want to touch on that, because I know we're talking about League One, but look, Joel and his team here and the people involved in League Two and the youth system, they do an unbelievable job. The amount of teams, and again, that was new to me coming into that. I didn't realize how many teams are actually already established. Yeah, it's amazing when you think of a league that size. I can't think of any leagues in the whole world that have that number of teams. So that's an amazing job. So that's a natural progression. There are some of those teams that have really good ownership groups that have that ambition to go to League One, which is great. But they learn some things in League Two about how they operate and what they need to do to build that organization. So good example, Drew over at One Knox, and obviously Stephen and the group over at Lexington that are coming in this year. I think they've learned a lot over the last few months in that process with the onboarding team. So I think it's I guess a shout out to them, then the hard work they do, that they're identifying that underneath market. And then you go a layer deeper when you look at the youth system and the amount of breadth that goes across the country. That's what I said, it doesn't really happen, and it's been built over a number of years. So that's really, it's helping the top. If League One and the Championship get bigger, it's because of what's coming underneath and new people coming in. It's a bit of both. Your point on territory, I think it's a good one, because like I said earlier on in the conversation about rivalry, I've seen it work where you have that sometimes really close connection with clubs, with the ecosystem of a number of people, you can have rivalry, you can have things on patch, you can have things closer. For everyone, that's less traveling and that's more competition. So they're things that you want to drive. But you have to understand that when people are purchasing a franchise, that's a big investment, and they need certain things to be able to build on that investment. So again, it's a bit of a double-edged sword when you're having those conversations, but I'd naturally like to think over a period of time that those things can be discussed in more detail and give teams the ability to have some rivalry, because that's, again, going to help generate that quality on the pitch and off the pitch.
I have a question for you. Say if a League Two team wants to make that step up to League One, do you guys have like a plan in place, like a 2-3 year plan? Like, hey, these are things you need to do to make sure you're ready to make that jump, or is it just as simple as like League Two owners like, yo, I got $100 million, I'm ready to go to League One, and you guys are like, that check cleared, let's go. Like, can you kind of help clear up that kind of misconception? Because I think like a lot of times us fans, we see like teams from League Two come up, and we're like how is this? What is the process going on to make this happen?
Yeah. So there's a why. Why do you want to go from League Two to League One? What's that side of things from their perspective, from a club's perspective and ownership? Is it you just want to be playing a better games competition? More games in that concentrated area, going from the pre-pro to pro state and be a professional, status club. Do you have the facilities, and do you want to purchase the facilities? Do you want to develop the facilities? All of those questions. So it's not as easy as just saying, absolutely, yeah, we'll take them on board. We have to consider current markets and the teams that we have already in certain areas, and then the ability for that team to actually be successful. So we have ideas, and if you want business plans that we help them with, but they have to be driven from the club. They have to have their own identity, what it is they want to do in that area, and more or less convince us that's the right opportunity for them to be. So it's like a double-edged sword again about really coming together and thinking about what does the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years look like for that organization, to be able to, for the senior people here to say, yes, absolutely, that's another team going into League One. The easiest thing to do, and people forget this, is just sign up a load of teams and then they'd be unsuccessful and drop out of the league within 2 or 3 years. That's not what we want to do. We're not, any new business, you're setting it up for success. You want it to be successful. The guys that have been here and doing it longer than I have learned a lot what makes a team successful. There are some key characteristics around facilities, staffing, infrastructure, play and performance that the teams need to be able to do to make sure that they can sustain each league status. Yeah. So there's not one answer, I guess, to that question. There's so many different things you have to think about, but we're open because they've already invested X and they already have a good idea. They're part of our umbrella. It's a good idea to look at League Two, and you'd have seen it. I think if I look at Tormenta and look at where Tormenta started and the journey that they're on from the youth side of things to League Two to League One and winning a championship last year, what an amazing story to say. Darren and the team over there, where they've been and where they go, the journey they're going on with a new stadium and all the investment going on there is great.
Okay. And I guess on the reverse side of that, like, how does it work for a team that's dropping down from the championship? Because we've seen that in the case with my team, Richmond or NCFC, like teams in the championship that are like, hey, we can't financially. That's what we always say. If we can't financially compete here, we're looking to drop down to League One. Like, what are some of, I guess, your guys' talks about that club? Like, what are some of those conversations with that club? And then also, like, do you guys ask, like, well, some of the concerns as well?
Yeah, I think sometimes, within an organization, you have to look at, and I said it earlier on, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, everyone's costs across the board are going up. They're only going in one direction. They're not going down. To operate these teams, it's a lot of money. And so when you look at those things, you have to be prepared to do certain things. And, it's not easy, first of all, to make sure. And I think sometimes you try and look at what product you can deliver. And so Richmond obviously have a great history in what they were achieving, obviously, when they were part of the championship. But they've also strengthened elements of League One by being that team that has that experience coming into League One and trying to help raise those standards for the other League One teams and offer that competition model as well. So I think geography, where they are, the travel, the facilities, the season tickets, the tickets they're selling, all of those things, they all come into play for decisions that don't mean they're not made lightly around what league they're going to be playing in or what league they choose to play in. Lots of discussions are going in. And listen, Richmond have made a lot of progress. If you look at the numbers of people coming to their games from where they were necessarily in the championship, they're getting better and they're improving.
Winning usually helps with that.
Yeah, exactly. It does. And, good point. Product on the pitch relates to what happens off the pitch. So there's a correlation there. And, I think those things are important.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure Yogi's also a Georgia football fan because he deluded himself into thinking the number 1 overall seed Richmond Kickers were an underdog in the playoffs.
My point was proven. Did we win? No, we didn't. Point was proven.
But it's been fun.
I'm looking forward to going to Richmond, Virginia over there and seeing the guys in practice. Again, one of the teams that I knew a lot of, if you want, or knew a lot more about, was them and their history. They've had Premier League teams go there. They've had big teams go there and showcase. They've had national games there in their venue. So, I think all of those things, again, they raise their profile of their team, regardless of the league that they're currently playing in.
And kind of on that same subject, since we're talking about League 2 going up, Championship going down, when League 1 is talking to a potential ownership group and the conversation of whether they should do League 1 or MLS Next Pro comes up, kind of what are the two, what would kind of be your sales pitch on why they should choose to be a member of League 1 as opposed to MLS Next Pro?
Okay, so I think MLS Next Pro obviously was part of this ecosystem, if you want, and how we had the games program and how we work with those teams. I think the development that goes on in those clubs, they're obviously, a little bit further down the line, if you want, their age and their investment and the facilities and things like that. So they'll have good coaching, good development in their pathway. I think outside the first team, so the first team play on whatever day they play on, you look at what games program is available for those players to play games. And sometimes when you're a player, I can relate to this, and seeing it and experience it, like playing in on pitches that are great and necessarily not having as many people in there to see the game and feel that realness of what a real game could be like over a different game where you've got a team versus another team and not many people are there, and the game's of consequence, we call it. What does it actually matter and mean to those players? And then obviously to play in a league, to play regularly for a championship and understand what that means to a player as part of the development process. It's really hard to recreate that, Chip, in a normal environment. It becomes a little bit false. And we experienced that in under 23 football in England, where teams are playing on a Monday or Tuesday afternoon, but it's not the same as playing at 3:00 on a Saturday. So trying to recreate that game experience that allows a player to maybe go from 16, 17, 18, 19, gain some experience, get games on their CV of how they can develop from a youth player to a senior pro player. It all comes down to opportunity if they've got to develop those things. And, they're going on their journey with it in MLS Next Pro, and we're going on our journey with it. We've proven over the last few years that that's a successful journey for young players to come and play in a real arena, especially at the championship level. You see those players going through from youth to pro, and by the end of the season at 17, 18, they've got 30 or 40 games, under their belt at a good level. And that's going to drive the team that they're playing in, the valuation of that player in the team, and also the market in Europe or abroad for that player. So there's lots of different things I'll be explaining to owners about that process.
All right, man. Lee, I think this has been an amazing interview, man. I think you pretty much answered all of my questions. Chip, Kyle, y'all had anything?
I mean, nothing serious, more just relaxed questions, but I don't know if Chip has any questions that are more prevalent to USL.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask him about the whole beans on toast thing, so someone has something else.
That works for me.
Cheese on top, beans and cheese on toast.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I accidentally went viral online last year because are you aware of the Footy Scran account, Lee?
No, I'm not. I'm not aware of that.
So it's an English account where they post pictures from game days. So you take a picture of the food, where it's from, and what the price is. And everyone just responds with these memes about players' names working in the word scran or not scran, which I take scran as English slang for good, cheap food.
Yeah.
So a pie with green sauce or something would be scran if it's $4, but if it was 17 pounds, you'd be like, nope, that's not scran because it's too expensive. So I put my foot in my mouth, as I often do, and was trash talking beans on toast to someone. And so I tried it. I went to the British grocery store here. I bought a can of beans. I put it on toast, put some cheese, put a little HP, and it was actually really good. It kind of tastes like a grilled cheese with tomato soup.
Yeah, it's a unique experience, beans on toast. Yeah, it's.
It really depends on the toast. I feel like the toast can make or break the whole meal.
So I have a legit question. Like, what kind of beans are we using? Are we using like Bush baked beans?
No, so their baked beans are more like beans and tomato soup, like Campbell's tomato soup, which is why.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. For the longest, I thought y'all was like using like baked beans, like barbecue baked beans and some stuff. And I'm like, why are we putting this on toast? Like,
again, I went to
we're arteries here, folks.
A fast food restaurant the other day, a healthy version of a fast food restaurant. But I was going through the salad section, and they were like, "Do you want beans?" And I was looking at them going, "Beans." I know baked beans, and they were like, they had about 4 different versions of beans, and I didn't realize so there's lots of different variations. So again, learning curve for me that they're very different out here, but nice at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'll ask you one question. What do you want to see from the league over the next year? Then you asked me the question. You guys are involved in it all the time, and you've been there. What do you want to see from your teams?
I think for me personally, I would love to see the league connect more with some of the independent media people. So obviously us, but like we're talking, the way I look at it is like we're talking about third division soccer, and there's not a lot of media coverage, like from the local stations in our respective areas. So a lot of guys that are fans of women that are fans of these teams cover them, and I think it would be nice to see the league kind of represent that work or try to partner with them to help, just give them that platform the same way how we give the league its platform.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I can feed that back my side.
Yeah, I was going to say, besides that, I would say more access and more accessibility to like advanced stats and just statistics in general. Because I think one of the things that really can be interesting, and especially in like the NBA, is there's so many sites, and even the NBA site, you can go and get like all these advanced stats and look at what lineups are working and how they're shooting open from 3 as opposed to like in the paint or which quarters. Like I think having more statistics up to date and available would be pretty cool, because I feel like trying to find advanced stats or even just stats in general is a little bit tougher.
Even basic stats, you can't tell someone's stats in a category from the league website unless they're in the top 10.
Right. Okay. So it'd be kind of interesting to see, like, okay, like, is this person like maybe there's a striker that only has 3 goals in 20 matches? Well, is it because they're just not finishing chances and they're getting plenty of one-on-ones, or is it that the team is not creating any chances for them? So just like trying to figure stuff out like that, because I think that would also spur on more independent writers and more people wanting to show interest and kind of leaning towards that, statistical side of it.
Yeah.
Again, I can feed that back to Adam and his team. We collect a lot of data here at the office, and I think it's how we share data with the clubs and the general public. So that's a good point. I think they're both very valuable reasons that I can listen. I think my job is to try and listen as well as to try and do things. So they're great for me to listen to you guys, and you've invested a lot of time and effort into the league as well.
And I guess my other thing would be, I think that some of the teams need to be better about this too, but kind of telling the story of what's happening in the community, whether that's individual fans or groups of fans, or even like what the league's doing or what teams are doing in their own communities. So unless you follow a team, like a different team that's not yours, you would have no idea that Forward Madison is doing a fundraiser for Black History Month with their Black supporters group, or that Union Omaha is partnering with the with a Black group here to show a movie at a local theater with the panel discussion afterwards. Like, you would have no idea those things are going on unless you follow the team. Or I don't know what the supporters are Richmond are doing, but I follow some of them on Twitter. So it's like, oh, cool. They're doing some cool stuff. And I think that telling the fan story is kind of a cool thing that the league can do. So it feels a little bit more like this is a league populated by people and fans and organizations that are a part of their community and not just playing a game of soccer on the pitch on Saturdays.
Yeah, good. I think they look very good things, guys. I think I can feed back. I think I'm open to, generally learning more about how we can try and help raise the profile and the standards across the whole board. So all those things you talk about, I can feed that back. And, Ethan, his team, and Matt, Fisher. The guys work hard here. You know, they don't. They need some help in other areas as well. We need help as a league with making sure that those things are reinforced, and you have a platform to do that as well with your listeners and how that comes across. So I think we all just need to probably communicate and work better and work harder and trying to do that over the next few months. And I'm sure you can get to listen to my dodgy accent a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's great.
Go ahead, Chip.
I was going to say, and it's great what the league does with what they have too. Like there are some really great content pieces coming out across the league, but even just the league sharing some stuff like Richmond did that really great documentary about Emilio Terzaghi last year. And unless you follow Richmond, you probably didn't see this like 20-minute documentary about him coming to the US, playing for Richmond and all this stuff. And it was like probably one of the best pieces of soccer journalism I viewed last year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, I'll take all that on board. And look, I appreciate the time today, guys, to chat to you. It's nice to meet you both and all of you in your own worlds. And I now know that I've got associated teams and supporters in different teams now. So, yeah, look, anything I can do on my end, just let me know. But I appreciate the time today.
Oh, yeah. We just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day for hopping on the show. For Chip, for Kyle, myself, and Lee, we just want to say, listeners, as always, thank you for taking the time out of your day for listening to our show. And we'll holler at you guys soon-ish. Be easy, y'all.